As you grow your business, you're likely starting subscriptions to things left and right like Showit, Dubsado or Honeybook, Flowdesk, Riverside, and Kajabi, just to name a few. To get the best deals on your needed software and easy to understand info about why you might need that software and if it's right for you, head to elizabethmccravey.com/tools. This is my robust resource page full of the tools I use to run my business and what I recommend for my students and customers. You'll find everything from website tools to financial and legal tools, and even my go-to business bank and credit card. This page is free to access and just about guarantees to save you money with all the great promos and discount codes I have for these companies. So before you hit subscribe in that software, go to elizabethmccravey.com/tools to see if there's a deal to help you save a little extra money. Hello guys, I'm back after a little planned 2-month break from airing new episodes, and I'm so excited to be sitting behind a mic again recording. Let me just say that. And I'm not just back with new episodes, I'm back with a series revolving around celebrating 10 official years that I've had this business. What a milestone. And to celebrate it this month, I'm sharing my biggest takeaways with you from these 10 years. And I have some really fun episodes planned, but to start, I'm sharing 10 things I've learned in 10 years of business and multiple millions of dollars in revenue. And these are the pieces of wisdom that I've gleaned from doing this 10 years I'd like to pass on to you at whatever stage you are in your business right now. Maybe you're just thinking of starting a business, or you're freelancing on the side, or maybe you're 5, 10, or 15, 20 years into business yourself. I think regardless where you're at, there's some stuff here that can help you. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the other episodes in this series. I'm going to be sharing some of my pinch me moments from 10 years in business, things I would tell myself, wish I could go back and tell myself on day one of business. And I'll also be doing a special episode where I talk about how motherhood has changed my business in so many huge ways. So with this one though, I'm diving into this in 2 parts. So today I have the first 5 things that I would like to tell you, the first 5 lessons and pieces of advice. And then next week on episode 331, I'm sharing the next 5 pieces of advice I'd like to pass on to you. And if you're listening to this after March 2026, you can go ahead and just scroll and find episode 331. So anyway, I'm really excited for these dividing into 2 parts. Come back for part 2. Let's get into it. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, educator for business owners, website designer, and your host of the Breakthrough Brand podcast. I'm a Christian, wife to my high school sweetheart, and mom to 3 sweet little kids. So yes, I record a lot of these episodes during nap time. On this podcast, I pull back the curtain on what it actually takes to build a successful, sustainable business, not the hustle till you drop version you hear about online. I've been a business owner since 2016, and I'm here to tell you this. You can build a business you love without burning out, sacrificing time with your family, or working 40 hours a week. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, with an honest look at the realities of motherhood, entrepreneurship, and navigating both with faith and purpose. You'll hear episodes on marketing, website design, podcast strategy, time management, and scalable income, while also talking about mom life, faith, and personal growth. If you want your business to feel purposeful, profitable, and aligned with your life, not the other way around, you're in the right place. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Okay, so I have officially been in business 10 years as of March 29th. March 29th of 2016 was when I first posted on Instagram and Facebook. I launched my website and declared to the world that I have a business and I'm open and please book me for your services. And back then, my business had a totally different name. I've actually changed my business name 3 times in 10 years, ultimately landing on Elizabeth McCravey as my name. But I had 2 fictitious, made up names prior to that. And back then, on day one of my business, my offering was graphic design and website design services, and also doing social media management and kind of like a hodgepodge. I'll catch all of things relating to media and design and marketing. I can do it. And so it's similar to what I do today, right? But I've evolved a lot to now offering Showit templates and courses primarily is my thing. But I started doing a lot, and over the 10 years have honed in. But I have a few things I want to share. I want to share real quick before we get into the tips. 10 years I've done some things, and 10 years I've made some mistakes. So when I think back on 10 years, I've done things like create 2 really big, awesome, exciting courses. I've designed over 30 website templates, and the number actually might be a lot higher than that, but something around 30. I've worked one-on-one with well over 100 clients for things like website design, branding, and social media management. I've gotten to speak on really big stages. I've gotten to guest on exciting podcasts. I've recorded over 300 episodes of this podcast. I've won awards. I've made multiple millions of dollars. Like I'm probably going to be putting in the title of this episode. I started a real estate business with my husband from the money I made from this business. And I have had 3 babies with 3 maternity leaves, one of which I'm still technically on right now, taking a long leaves. I'm all about long maternity leaves. And I've consistently had multiple 6-figure a year businesses every year for a long time now. I've had a business where I've been able to actually pay myself. So I've had a lot of like wins, right? Like I feel like all those things are some exciting wins I feel really proud of and I feel also very grateful for. But I've also done things like made really big mistakes. I actually thought about for this series doing an episode about all the mistakes I've made, some of the biggest ones in 10 years. Maybe I will end up including that, but I've made so many mistakes. I've made bad purchases that were horrible business investments. I've hired and fired poorly and just done a bad job in that realm at times. I've had products completely flop when I've launched them. I've posted things on Instagram that get like no likes and that people don't like. I've embarrassed myself. I've done things that felt embarrassing. I've felt the sense of burnout at times. I've had tax disasters, which I think if some of you guys have been around the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about some of that at some point. I have designed website templates that didn't sell, that I ultimately just took down because no one bought them. I have said yes to quote unquote opportunities that I shouldn't have. And I've started things and closed them quickly and so many more errors. Again, I could do a whole podcast episode about that, about all the different lessons. So with all that said, I'm coming to you right now with this series and these tips. It's just a real business owner, a wife, a mom who's like, I've done some good things. I've done some things that didn't work out either. And so if you're completely new here, just a little quick recap. I'm Elizabeth McCravy. And if you're like, what do I do in these 10 years? I'm a website designer and business educator. And the main thing that I do is I sell website templates. I have online courses that teach you things like podcasting and how to build a design business. And I'm also the mom of 3 small kids, a wife to my husband for 10 years now. We actually got married and then I started my business like a few months later. If you ever heard the story of starting it, that happened pretty quickly after getting married. I'm a Christian and I also love sharing candidly what works and what doesn't work for me. And that's really like when I think back on like episode 1 of this podcast, that's what I've been doing this whole time with this show, Breakthrough Brand, since day one. I'm always about sharing what works for me and what doesn't in hopes that you can learn from it. So with all that said, let's get into it though. These are my top 10, starting with 5 today, 5 next week. Things I want to pass along to you that I've learned in 10 years of business. And some I have more to say about, some I have less. And they are in no particular order, but I will say the first one I would say is like the number one thing I'd want to share. But again, no technically particular order. So here's the first one, the full statement that we're going to dive into it. So first thing, don't be too busy building a successful business that you forget to build a life. Your business is not the most important thing. It's not who you are. It's something that you do. So with that, I'm saying build your business around the life you want versus fitting your life around your business and making your business the thing that everything else has to like work with. And that's the number one. And what I was saying about this, like nothing, guys, I mean, nothing about your business is more important than things like your family, your children, your faith life, your friendships, your health. So have rightly placed priorities in your life. I love the quote from Stephen Covey, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And y'all, it can be so easy. And I've felt this at times to get caught up in business, the hustle, the desire to do more and achieve and compete that you neglect other things. And I feel like I see this happen to people without even realizing it. Like you get more and more wins. You get one win after another. You're earning well and you keep wanting more. And the more is never enough. And you're achieving for the sake of achieving and you're sacrificing your life and your other priorities at the altar of your business. So avoid this mistake. And a way to avoid it is just to be conscious that it's like a thing that happens to people and be aware enough that you don't let it creep in and be one of the many successful entrepreneurs you've seen. I don't even have to name names. If you've like listened to other podcasts and consumed content from big creators, you know this, who they tell you they built this massive business. And during that time, they'd had things happen like lose their marriage, neglect their health, quit having friends, like neglected friendships, or missed out on the little years with their kids. Those are common stories we hear from people who have built these really, really big businesses. And when they're building it, you often don't see that that's what's happening because it doesn't look that way from the outside looking in. But then they go back and they tell you that like, hey, I was a gazillionaire, but I got really unhealthy during that time or whatever the thing might be. So I would just say, keep the main thing the main thing. And I would argue the main thing isn't your business. So build a life, fit your business into your life, and do not chase success for the sake of success. That could be its own whole point. But I do think there's so much wisdom in figuring out with your business at some point. For a while, you just want to keep growing, right? But at some point you have to ask yourself, what is enough? What is my enough number that I want to pay myself? Okay. What is the enough amount the business needs to make in order for me to do that? And make that your goal, not just growing for the sake of growth. And I have a lot more to say about this one that I'm actually going to include in the episode I'm doing, probably the third in the series. That's going to be things I wish I could go back to tell myself on day one of starting a business. So there's some advice there. So come back for that one. I'm going to kind of stop on this point with that. But I do just feel like this is one of the most important things to know. Don't be too busy building a successful business that you forget to build a life. And I feel like I'm truly living in this one right now personally, which again, I'm going to talk about in a later episode in the series where I talk about how motherhood has shaped my business. But right now, I feel like I am having, for me, rightly placed priorities. And I have ever since becoming a mom, but my business has become less so that my kids can become a higher priority than my work. But right now, my youngest, Sophia, she is 7 months old as I'm recording this, and I'm her primary girl. I'm her primary childcare. We don't have any childcare for her. I'm recording this podcast right now where my husband is with all 3 kids, but I'm the primary childcare for my kids. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that so bad. And I felt that the more kids I had, the more that was what my desire was. And so I had to figure out, okay, how do I keep the business that I do want to keep and that I love while also having rightly placed priorities and while making the main thing the main thing? So again, I'll talk about that more another time, just leaving a little bit of that there. But this has been a huge lesson, a huge thing I've learned in 10 years. And I wish more people early on in their business could just have that in the back of their mind so that as you grow and as you build, you're constantly just asking yourself, wait, am I building my life around my business or is my business being built around my life? And if you can have this as a mindset early on, you won't really run into issues with it because it can just be that you're building your business around your life instead of your life around your business. Okay, let's get on to number 2. So second lesson in 10 years. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So this is just it's simple. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So your life as a business owner will be littered with opportunities, and the opportunities grow the more successful you become. But the opportunities are always there from day 1 to year 10. You have so many opportunities. There's always more you can be doing. There's always more events you could speak at, more podcasts you could guest on, more clients who you could work with, more course ideas, additional business ideas, a product that someone told you hey, you would be the perfect person to make that product. Please make it. There's a book you could write, a membership that could sound like a good idea for you to create. There's YouTube, there's podcasting. I mean, guys, there's opportunities everywhere. And there are people everywhere telling you that this is the thing you should do, right? That you should do YouTube, you should do podcasting, you should do a course, whatever the thing might be. There is always more. And a lot of these opportunities are just distractions dressed up as opportunities that you've got to ignore. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. And if you fail to ignore the distractions, you'll end up burnt out, overworked, or perhaps even less successful because your business lacks focus. Okay, that's a big one there. If you fail to ignore them, you'll often end up burned out, overworked, or perhaps even less successful because your business lacks focus. So just because you can do the cool thing doesn't mean that you should. So my advice here really is to use discernment and discipline in your business decisions. And discipline really is the word, guys. Discipline to not just say yes to everything, to be wait, to really ask is this a yes or is it a no? And just because it sounds cool doesn't mean it has to be a yes. I love the quote from Warren Buffett that says the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. And I know there's nuance to that kind of statement, but I think that is true. There's some truth to that. And another quote I really love, I've shared this on multiple podcast episodes because it's something I heard that stuck with me. So James Clear, this was just passing comments he made on an episode of Tim Ferriss's podcast I heard years ago. This might have even been 6 or 7 years ago. But he said this quote, success generates opportunities and distractions. And then he also said, you get really good at something, so that brings opportunities your way. You turn around 6 months later and you don't have time to do the thing that made you successful. And I just thought that, again, so much wisdom in that. Like, you get good at something, you get all these opportunities, and now you got all these opportunities in the way. You don't even have time to do the thing that was what made you successful in the first place. So that is why I'm saying just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay, let's keep going. So third one, be unrealistic with your dreams. So I was looking back as like I was preparing for this, because again, such an exciting milestone, but in my years of having this podcast and having my business, I've done episodes similar to this where I've said, these are lessons I've learned 4 years into business, 3 years into business, whatever it is. So I gave this piece of advice. I'm talking about it differently, but this was on episode 6 years ago, in episode 60 of this podcast, where I shared what I had learned 4 years into business. Like, what are my biggest takeaways 4 years in? I think I had 4 pieces of advice, and this was one of them. And it was so fun to me actually reading that, thinking about myself writing this 6 years ago in a very completely different season of life without kids yet, my business in a different place. I wasn't making courses yet or anything like that. And it's even more true for me now than it was 6 years ago. So I truly believe one of the keys to success is to be the least realistic person in the room and have the ability to dream and vision really big. And again, this is something I've lived by, something I said 6 years ago, and I will say again right now. So with that, I feel like this is again for me, a lesson I've learned. I don't want to live a quote unquote realistic life. I'm not after realistic and simple. And from day one of my business, I have dreamed unrealistically. And my dreams have changed in really big ways as my life has evolved. Like becoming a mother really changed what I wanted my work to look like, which I would say what I want it to look like has continued to be somewhat unrealistic. It's not really the conventional way that people have said that, hey, when you become a mom, if you want to still work, this is what it has to look like, right? So I've just dreamed unrealistically. And I think that's important and helpful, because a lot of the times the way the mainstream is doing it is not necessarily going to be the best way, right? And so with this tip, I would say I can't recommend enough the power of journaling, letter writing, and vision casting for your business and for your life. And I think this has been a huge key to my success in creating a life I really love and a business I really love, is spending time visioning out what I'm after. And for me, I mean, you guys, again, if you've been around the podcast for a while, you know I'm really into journaling. So sometimes for me, this literally has looked like sitting down with my journal and just writing pen to paper. Other times I like to go on a walk where I'm walking and dreaming. I put my AirPods in. I don't listen to anything, but I just think and pray. And dream up visions about my life or my business or a project I'm working on. I've also done that with my births, like literally birthing children, like going on walks and thinking about like, what are my hopes and dreams and prayers for this birth experience? So I think just, taking time to vision out what you're after. And I like to ask questions like, if this were the best year ever, what would happen? Simple questions like that. And you can actually go back to episode 328 of this podcast to get that journal exercise that you can ask yourself, if this was the best year ever, what would that mean happen? And writing a letter to yourself from perspectives of like the end of the year. It's really, really fun exercise if you like journaling. But I would say vision cast for your life and your business. Dream bigger than what perhaps you have been told is reasonable for you. And to be clear, when I say dream bigger, I do not mean that you should be dreaming that you own a business that does $5 million a year and you travel the world speaking at conferences and you own 100 homes, or like, I don't know, whatever, become a celebrity. Like, I don't necessarily mean stuff like that. If that's what you want though, then yes, that can be what dreaming bigger means for you. But it might mean dreams that actually feel small, but are challenging to achieve. So it might mean that you dream of staying home with your kids while maintaining an income stream through 1 to 2 days of work in your business. It might mean that you dream of figuring out something really well in your own business and you want to teach other people how to do it. It might mean that you dream of starting a podcast where you get to record episodes that make an impact on people's lives. Like, it can mean a lot of different things, but just dream bigger. And it kind of even tying it back to the first lesson I shared, dreaming big for how your business and life work together versus like opposing each other. So that can be a lot of what the dream is. And as someone who, like, you guys listening, you're business owners too and entrepreneurs, like, you get to dream differently than when you choose a corporate like 9-to-5 life. You get to create more nuance and more integration and things that just look a little bit differently. Like right now, I'm recording this episode in my messy home office / art closet for my kids in very casual clothes while I'm actually going to have to take a break in a few minutes to nurse my baby. Like that's kind of what your work life can look like when you choose entrepreneurship. You have a lot more nuance to it and a lot more just things looking maybe a little unrealistic, a little bit different than what fits into a typical box. So that's number 3, be unrealistic with your dreams. Need some extra pages to improve or add on to your Showit website, but you're not in the market for an entirely new template. Been there. Sometimes you just need a little extra help to save you time as you add new things to your website as your business grows. That's why I put a huge focus on creating Showit add-on templates to meet your needs, including tons of add-ons that you won't find in any other template shop. From pages to promote yourself as a conference speaker, to pages to house information about your podcast, add-on templates to help you build a quiz lead magnet, favorite things pages, Instagram link in bio so you can ditch that Linktree subscription, and so much more. Head to elizabethmccravey.com/shop to see them all. There are so many more than what I just named, and you can even bundle them together to save more. But as a podcast listener, you can also use the code BBPOD to save an additional 15% off on your add-on or full site template purchase for a limited time. If you are hearing this ad right now, that means the deal is available. So go shop now using the code BBPOD. Okay, I've got 2 left for this episode, and then you'll have to come back next week to hear the next 5. Okay, so these last 2 are good ones. This one, number 4, I have less to say about, but it's an important one, okay? 4, have fun with it. So if you're not having fun at least some of the time with your business, I would say you're either doing business wrong or there's something off about where your business is at right now. I know there's like seasons of burnout or seasons where you're just like, or even a day where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do any of this. So I get that. That's all besides the point. I'm talking more like generally business and the way you approach it can be something that you are having fun with and having curiosity around and enjoying. So I would love to see you loving business and able to just have fun. And again, that doesn't mean you'll like everything you do. It doesn't mean it'll be easy, but it can be fun and challenging and rewarding and exhausting and confusing all bundled together. And that's what makes running a business special. So I would just encourage you today, if you're feeling like as you're listening to this, maybe you're on a walk, you're driving, you're doing chores or doing some random computer work for your business, ask yourself if there's something you could do this week to make your business a bit more fun. Like what's something that you have fun with in your business that maybe you've outsourced and you should bring back you doing, but like keeping the joy in your business, I think is important, especially if you want to stay in business a long time. If you want business to be something you get to do, not something you have to do, that kind of mindset. And again, I'm about to share a quote with you guys. That's one I heard probably like 10 years ago from James Wedmore. He's someone who I've learned from in my business, especially early on. I've been on his podcast even, which was one of those like big highlight moments for me in my business. But he has a quote. He said, I think it's a good one. Okay. I'm not saying building a business is easy, but making it hard doesn't mean you'll be successful. I just think that's so good. So I'm not saying building a business is easy, but making it hard doesn't mean you'll be successful. And that's where I say, have some fun with it. And that's a quote. Again, I heard him say probably like 10 years ago that stuck with me, that like, it's not going to be easy, but making it hard doesn't mean you're going to be successful. So have some fun. Okay. And my 5th one, I really love this one. Relax and know that your business should evolve. So that's my 5th one for today. Relax and know that your business should evolve. So it is not an emergency that you are 3 years into business and you're tired of doing the thing that you've been doing the whole time since you started your business 3 years ago. Or it's not an emergency that you were selling a course and now you want to close it, or that you podcasted for 200 episodes and you feel like you've said all there is to say, or that you grew as a person and you have this new passion that you want to talk about and teach on that has nothing to do with what you were doing on day one of your business. So these pivots and changes don't mean that something failed. It just means that you've done whatever it is long enough or for enough reps, enough hours, enough things sold, whatever the way you want to think about it is, that you want to make a pivot or a change. I'm saying you won't do the same thing the whole time you have your business. And I think we do feel a sense of panic around those things I just said, that like, wait, you're going to close your course. That must mean something is crazy and bad and wrong. And I'm just here to tell you, it doesn't have to mean that. I get that it can mean that, but it also doesn't have to. And something I actually don't even have in my notes, so I'm going to throw in here. I'm sure many of you guys have heard and seen, it happened at the time of recording this like a month ago, maybe, but Jenna Kutcher announced that she was closing her Gold Digger podcast that she had for many, many years, like almost 1,000 episodes recorded. And then that same week, Amy Porterfield announced that she's no longer going to be teaching her course, Digital Course Academy. And she's like done being the person who's teaching you how to make a course. And I have so much to say about both of those things. Some of my friends have heard me on voice memos. We've chatted. I've had lots of chats with people about both of those decisions that those two women made. But I will say, and maybe at some point I could record an episode about that. I chose not to like create content around the decisions they made for a lot of different reasons. One being that I'm trying to focus on other things right now. But I will say, with both those decisions, something I saw a lot of people freaking out about was like, okay, does that mean that podcasting is dead? That Jenna doesn't want to have her podcast? Does that mean that courses are dead? That Amy doesn't want to teach digital courses? And maybe they could mean that. But what I think it actually means when we see pivots like that is that you are allowed to get tired of doing something when you have your business a long time. And I think Amy was probably really tired of teaching online courses. And I think Jenna was tired of doing her podcast and recording all these interviews with all these huge celebrities and having to like keep the wheel spinning. They may have both like been burnt out by those things and ready to pivot into something else. Again, this is in my outline. Might end up cutting it. But I feel like that drives this point home of like relax and know that your business should evolve. And those are both two women who have been in business a really long time. And we're seeing their businesses evolve. Like Jenna, she's really changed a lot of what she's talking about. She's doing different things. She's evolving her business. Same with Amy. She's evolving into a new offer. So like, anyway, you're not going to do the same thing the whole time you have your business. So closing your course is not an emergency. Changing up your direction in something is not an emergency. And just know you're not going to do the same thing the whole time you have your business. So in my own life, back to my outline here, I'm 33 years old right now. I've only ever worked for someone besides myself as an entrepreneur. When I was in college, I had various jobs then. And then for 4 months post-college, I had a traditional 9-to-5 at an advertising agency. I got married and moved to Nashville at the same time, started a 9-to-5 job there for 4 months. I quit and started my business. And so basically I've been working for myself my whole adult life. And it is harder for me to understand what it's like to work like a 9-to-5 at this point. I'll be honest. Like if I've said anything on this episode, even that you're like, whoa, like so different if you have a 9-to-5, I don't know what that's like is the truth. At this point, I've barely done that. And so I've talked to a few friends about this, but it can be scary, but also just leveling for me to remind myself and realize that if I do work as an entrepreneur until retirement, so like 30 more years on or so, I will certainly not be selling Showit templates and teaching online courses, maybe not even doing this business podcast, right? That can be a little bit like, wait, maybe if you think that about your own business for a moment, you can feel the like a little bit of a jump scare of like, wait, like I'm going to have to like change what I'm doing to be something completely different. Like maybe. So it's just not real life for me to think that what I'm doing right now is what I will maintain doing that long. And at the same time, I do expect to stay an entrepreneur. So anyway, just being open for the evolvement. What you do will evolve, even if what your business does stay the same. Like maybe you're building a business and you're like, no, Elizabeth, my business is going to do this same thing all 30 years or whatever. What you do will evolve if your business stays the same. So what you're doing on day one with your scrappy company where you're wearing all the hats will evolve as you hire a team and you're not wearing every hat. So just things change. And the reason I added this as a lesson is because I think it's easy for us to get very uncomfortable with the change and to think we are doing something wrong if we want to pivot or if we're tired of something when it's actually just normal and healthy. And it is something that like is unique to entrepreneurship because in a more corporate setting, people often just change jobs when they're tired of it or they've hit the pay ceiling or whatever it is, or they change roles within the company they're working for. But then for some reason, we think that in our business, you got to do the same thing forever. And it's a bad sign. It's a sign of something wrong with the industry or a sign of something wrong with you if you get tired of the thing you're doing. And sometimes it's not even burnout. Sometimes it's just that like it's time for a pivot. So anyway, I think it can be easy to think that we're doing something wrong when it's normal and healthy. And at the same time, a nuance to this is you want to resist the urge to chase excitement in your business and always need something big to be happening. A tip I'm actually going to share on my things I'd love to tell myself on day one is it's okay to have a boring business. So I'll just add that as a little bonus tip right here. But it's okay and can be really good to have a boring business. And there can be, especially in the online business space, this like vibe of like always chasing and going big. And like, you got to go for the next launch, the next exciting offer. And I'm saying it's okay to just not chase excitement and to feel like your business is a little boring. That can actually be healthy too. So anyway, that one had more to say about than I thought, but that was number 5, relax and know that your business should evolve. So come back next week to hear the next 5 things that I've learned, 10 years in business and multiple millions in revenue. And I'm just going to recap those 5 I just shared and would love for you to think about which one resonates with you the most. And also, I just want to add real quick here, as you're someone who has listened to the end of this episode, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, or maybe this is your first episode and you've enjoyed it, but you've never left a rating or review, please do. I love reading them. You can just go on Apple Podcasts and mark the amount of stars and write something. It helps other people find the show. And on Spotify, you can just do a star rating. Okay, so let me read through these 5 again. Okay, don't be too busy building a successful business that you forget to build a life. That was number 1. 2, just because you can doesn't mean you should. 3, be unrealistic with your dreams. 4, have fun with it. And 5, relax and know that your business will and should evolve. And that doesn't mean that it is an emergency. Okay, so that is it. I hope these were so helpful to you, and come back next week for 5 more. And thank you guys for just giving me a place to even share. Again, podcasting is thinking about the way, number 4 of like having fun with it. Podcasting is the way I have fun in business personally. I really, really love it. So thank you for allowing me to like have fun today in my business and chat with you. All right, bye guys. Hey, thank you for listening to the podcast all the way to the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on ElizabethMcCravey.com, you'll find Showit website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you make more money from your website. Maybe your current website is really boring, maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe it's even the thing you feel like is holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my templates do. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, not just pretty, and also strategic with all the strategies I teach on this show, and they are easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at ElizabethMcCravey.com/shop and come join thousands of happy customers using these templates. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off your template as a thank you for being part of the podcast fam. Again, that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over on ElizabethMcCravey.com. Also, if you loved this episode, leaving a rating and review for the show on wherever you're listening or sharing it with a friend is a great way to support this podcast. Thank you again for listening, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.